I knew I was already screwed the second I saw brake lights stretch from the on-ramp to what looked like the goddamn edge of the earth. Rain hammering the windshield. My phone buzzing like a pissed-off mosquito with Claire's passive-aggressive texts. ETA. Client waiting. They're early. It was supposed to be the biggest pitch of the quarter. Some mystery billionaire the execs had been whispering about for weeks. And there I was, stuck behind a line of Teslas with drivers who didn't know how to handle a wet left turn. By the time I skidded into the underground parking garage, heels in my hand, blazer half-buttoned, I already knew Claire would try to gut me in front of everyone. That woman treated punctuality like a religion and kindness like a disease. I sprinted into the lobby, hair soaked, mascara probably doing war paint down my cheeks, when I saw him, bent over, struggling with a mop bucket that had dumped a tsunami of dirty water across the marble floor. Some janitor in a busted blue jumpsuit, pushing against a wheel that clearly gave up on capitalism years ago. Every instinct said to keep walking, but I didn't. I dropped my bag, knelt beside him, and helped stabilize the cart while he adjusted the wheel. His hands were shaking. Old guy. Smelled like Irish Spring and wet concrete. These damn things, he muttered. They don't make 'em like they used to. I smiled and said, pretty sure they never did. We both laughed. Just for a second. He looked up at me with the clearest blue eyes I've ever seen on a man his age and said, rare to see that here. I didn't ask what he meant. I didn't have time to. But before I continue, I know 97% of people listen without subscribing. But if this story has you even half curious where it's headed, take 2 seconds to like the video and hit that subscribe button. It means everything to the team that makes these stories possible. Anyway, I slipped into the elevator, hair frizzing into some kind of tragic cotton ball, heart racing like I'd run a marathon with a backpack full of bricks. I rehearsed my apology, firm, direct, no rambling. Just own the lateness, slide into the back of the room, and pray Claire didn't eviscerate me in front of this supposed god of money. But the second those elevator doors opened and I stepped into the 23rd floor conference room, I could feel the air change. Cold, tense. The way it gets right before a thunderclap splits the sky. Claire didn't even look up from her perfectly manicured notes. She just murmured, nice of you to join us. Like she was reciting a damn funeral eulogy. A few of the execs snickered. My chair, because yes, even our chairs were assigned like second grade, was across from her, 2 down from a man I'd never seen before. Older, clean-shaven, black suit with subtle pinstripes, sitting very, very still. Everyone else had some kind of tablet, laptop, presentation gear in front of them. Him? Just a leather briefcase and a cup of coffee, untouched. I sat down, slow, quiet, heat rising in my cheeks like someone had set a match to my neck. Claire launched into the pitch like a wind-up doll, talking about agile integration, forward-facing synergy. All the crap that sounds good in press releases but means absolutely nothing when you're the one doing the real work behind the scenes. I kept my eyes down, chewing the inside of my cheek, trying to get my pulse to calm down. And then, about 6 minutes in, I felt it. A flicker. That man's eyes. On me. Not staring. Not judging. Just watching. Measuring. I looked up for half a second and nearly did a double take. Same eyes. Same sharp, icy blue. Same quiet stillness that didn't match the chaos around him. It was the janitor. Or it wasn't. But it was. And I suddenly had no idea what the hell kind of meeting I just walked into. I sat down so quietly you'd think I was trying to disappear into the damn carpet. My skirt stuck to my thighs from the rain, blazer still damp, hair probably clinging to my forehead like a wet dog, and the only seat left was, of course, directly across from Claire. She didn't look at me. Not really. Just that side glance thing she does where her lips curl into a smile but her eyes stay dead. Nice of you to join us, she said. Like I was some intern who wandered in off the street instead of the strategist who built half the proposal she was about to butcher. Someone chuckled. Then another. Like hyenas laughing at a dying animal. I didn't even look to see who. That's how it works there. You either laugh or risk being the next one under her Louboutin heel. But the man at the end of the table, the client, mystery billionaire, the reason half the company was running on cold brew and nervous breakdowns this week, he didn't laugh. Didn't even blink. just sat there, completely still, like he was watching actors forget their lines in a play he'd already seen 10 times. I don't know if anyone else noticed, but I did. He looked bored. Not just with Claire. With all of us. I swallowed whatever dignity I had left. Didn't offer an excuse. Didn't apologize. Didn't try to recover. What was the point? If you show weakness in that boardroom, it's like bleeding in shark water. I just slipped into the last chair, reached into my tote for a notebook I didn't even open, and tried to breathe without it sounding like defeat. Claire cleared her throat, straightened her spine like someone had shoved a broomstick up it, and started her pitch. As you'll see on slide 1, our integration model is fully optimized for vertical scalability across all core market sectors. I swear to God, it was like someone stuffed buzzwords into a blender and just hit liquefy. She didn't even look at the client. Just at the damn screen, like reciting the spell would summon the $200 million contract we were all pretending we had a shot at. Her voice got that fake warmth it always did when she was trying to connect with someone. Like she was reading a Hallmark card in a hostage video. She glossed over the numbers, skipped the methodology section entirely. And when she reached the slide that I'd built from scratch over 3 sleepless nights, she actually had the gall to say, "One of my team members pulled this together at the last minute, so forgive any formatting issues." At the last minute? Formatting? I gripped my pen so hard I thought it might snap in half. But I didn't flinch, didn't blink. Just let her take the credit and twist the blade on her way through. That was her power move, diminish and devour. And everyone in that room had been fed to her at some point. They all knew the drill. The client still didn't react, didn't nod, didn't ask a single question. Just sat there with one hand resting lightly on the briefcase in front of him, like he already knew what was inside and didn't care to open it. Every now and then his eyes would flicker, just slightly, toward me. Not Claire. Not the slides. Me. I didn't understand it then. I thought maybe he recognized me from somewhere. Or maybe he was just bored and scanning the room. But there was something in that look. Like he was waiting, measuring. I'd seen those eyes before. Less than 20 minutes ago. Across a mop bucket in a lobby no one cared about. In a man no one noticed. And suddenly, I realized, maybe I hadn't been late at all. Maybe I was exactly where I needed to be. ChatGPT skazal. Claire passed the baton to Martin next, our chief innovation officer, which basically meant he got paid $500,000 a year to slap pastel gradients on recycled tech and call it disruption. He strutted to the front of the room like he was about to deliver the Sermon on the Mount. "Let's talk about synergy," he began, which was code for prepare to be held hostage by 34 slides of nonsense. I glanced at the client. Still nothing. No nods. No note-taking. Just that same stillness, hand resting gently on the briefcase, like he was guarding a secret instead of a contract. The others didn't seem to notice, or maybe they were too wrapped up in performance mode to care. I mean, this was the moment, right? The kind of meeting people angled their entire careers around. But the energy was off, like we were auditioning for someone who'd already picked the cast. Martin clicked to a slide that literally just said automation equals freedom in giant block letters, complete with a photo of a guy in a suit doing a cartwheel in a wheat field. I nearly laughed. The client's eyes didn't even twitch. Then came Sasha, VP of Global Strategy, fresh off her second divorce and riding a fresh round of Botox like it was battle armor. "At our core," she purred, "we are disruptors." The screen behind her lit up with stock photos of wind turbines and happy diverse teams fist-bumping over lattes. It was like watching a TED Talk scripted by a Hallmark card and produced by LinkedIn. I should have been rolling my eyes. I should have been bored. But I wasn't. I was staring at his shoes. Not fancy Italian loafers like you'd expect from a guy commanding 9 figures. Not designer. Not even new. They were scuffed, black work shoes with faded rubber soles. The kind janitors wear. The kind I'd seen up close this morning while kneeling beside that busted mop bucket. My stomach twisted. I glanced up at his face again. He wasn't looking at Sasha. He was looking at me. And not in the way a bored man glances around a room. No, this was something different. Intentional. Like I was the only thing in the room that wasn't wasting his time. I tried to convince myself I was wrong, that I was projecting, that it was just coincidence, that maybe janitor shoes were common, and maybe billionaires didn't care about polish like the rest of us fake smile peacocks in pressed suits. But then he did something that damn near short-circuited my brain. He winked. Not some creepy office wink. Not flirtatious. Just a slight, knowing squint of the eye. Like he was confirming what I already knew but wasn't ready to believe. I shifted in my seat, suddenly hyper-aware of how absurd everything around me was. Claire, Sasha, Martin. All of them throwing jargon at a man who hadn't spoken a single word. A man who'd seen me soaked and late, helping a stranger, and decided I wasn't like them. It hit me hard, like a cold slap in the middle of a sauna. I wasn't being watched. I was being evaluated. And not by the company. By him. Sasha was halfway through some nonsense about global horizontality when the client raised a hand. No flourish, no warning, just a slow, deliberate lift like he was silencing a courtroom. The room froze. Every voice, every click of a pen, every fake chuckle died mid-breath. Even Claire, who'd been fiddling with her pen like it was a conductor's baton, straightened in her seat like someone pulled a string in her spine. He didn't raise his voice, didn't clear his throat or give one of those theatrical sighs executives love when they want control. He just asked, quiet and cold, "Who was late this morning?" Silence. Heavy. Dense. I felt the air shift, like the pressure drop before a storm slams into a coastline. Claire blinked. Once. Twice. Her lips parted in that slow, stalling way, but she couldn't quite conjure the right lie fast enough. So she defaulted to image control. "One of our project strategists," she said, injecting that thin-lipped smile into her voice, the kind she wore when she was about to pivot into a calculated deflection. "He's new to protocol. Passionate, of course. Eager. Just still learning punctuality." That one stung. She made it sound like I was a summer intern who didn't understand how calendars worked. Project strategist. Not your strategist, not my strategist. Just a disposable cog. Something to brush off like lint on her lapel. The client didn't respond right away. Just stared at her. And I mean stared. Not aggressive. Not angry. Just unblinking. Like he was waiting for something only he could see. Then, with the same calm stillness he'd kept all morning, he closed his laptop. Soft click. Deliberate. Like a gavel falling on a verdict no one saw coming. "This meeting's over," he said. It was so quiet you could have heard Sasha's Botox tighten. Claire blinked again, a twitch in her jaw. Excuse me?" He stood, straightened his cuffs, and repeated, "The meeting is over." Claire let out a brittle laugh. The kind women like her only use when they're losing control and trying to claw it back with charm. "Oh, I'm sure we can pivot. If something's missing from the deck, perhaps we could realign on your KPIs?" Her voice was getting that fake warmth again. A desperate coo, like trying to soothe a toddler holding a grenade. The client didn't look at her. He looked at me. Everyone followed his gaze. Heads turned like synchronized puppets. And suddenly I wasn't invisible anymore. I was the epicenter. The grenade. My hands stayed still in my lap. I didn't move. I didn't smile. I didn't even blink. I just sat there, every cell in my body screaming, "Don't ruin this." Claire must have realized then that she had no control over the room anymore. Her mouth opened again. Probably some desperate, throat-clutching attempt to salvage her reputation. But nothing came out. Not a single word. Just this wide-eyed panic crawling across her face like she was watching her carefully sculpted world start to burn. The others looked around, unsure whether to stand, apologize, clap. Hell, some of them looked like they wanted to cry. I could feel the dread bleeding into the room. This wasn't just a client walking away. This was a $200 million coffin being nailed shut, right in front of the people who thought they had the hammer. And I just sat there, quiet, still, like I already knew what was coming next. He didn't walk out. Not right away. He just stood there, still as a statue, radiating the kind of authority that doesn't shout, doesn't gesture, doesn't need to prove a goddamn thing. And then, finally, he spoke. "You stopped to help a man who couldn't offer you anything," he said, voice steady but slicing clean through the tension like a scalpel. That told me everything I needed to know about your company. Claire blinked. Once. Again. You could see her mental Rolodex flipping, trying to catalog every interaction, every name, every act of kindness she might have missed in the last 24 hours. But she couldn't find it, because it wasn't her. It was never her. And then he turned. Eyes on me. You're the only one I'm interested in. The room didn't gasp. Collapsed. Like the oxygen had been vacuumed out and all anyone could do was sit there and suffocate in real time. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I felt the blood drain from my hands, my face, my spine. My brain shouted, did he just say that? Did he just? But my body sat frozen. Some part of me terrified that if I blinked, it would all rewind. Claire made a noise. Something between a cough and a protest and a choking sound. Like her vocal cords had tried to argue but her ego caught the flu. Excuse me? She managed, voice tight and shaking. I don't think I understand. He didn't even turn toward her. Didn't acknowledge the question. He just calmly reached down, picked up his briefcase, and in one smooth motion, slid the contract, the holy grail of Q4 projections, the thing Claire had talked about nonstop for 3 weeks, back into it. Click. Locked. Done. He looked at me again. Not with warmth. Not with pity. Just recognition. Like he was seeing me. Not the strategist title, not the blazer, not the soaked hair or chipped nails, but me. The person who knelt beside a broken cart when everyone else would have walked past. Integrity doesn't need a title, he said simply. It just shows up. Then he walked out. No handshake. No goodbye. No polite applause or closing pleasantries. Just silence. Pure, echoing corporate silence. The kind that follows a grenade in a boardroom. Claire didn't speak. Couldn't. Her mouth stayed open mid-sentence. Her body frozen in a pose of command that no longer belonged to her. She looked like someone who'd just watched a ghost walk through a wall and then realized the wall had never mattered. Martin stared at the floor. Sasha pretended to scroll something urgent on her tablet. A few others looked at me, then quickly away, like making eye contact might drag them into the blast radius. But me, I sat still. The shock was still there, yes, but under it, rising like a slow, unstoppable tide, power. Not the kind you chase, not the kind you dress for, the kind that finds you because you did the right thing when no one was watching. And now, everyone was watching. By the next morning, it was like the building had swallowed a live wire. HR sent out an all-staff email with the subject line, clarifying yesterday's client interaction, the kind of vague, frantic damage control that screams one thing, they're panicking. I didn't open it. Didn't need to. I could feel the panic in every hallway I walked through, every whisper that dropped when I entered the room, every stare that didn't quite know whether to apologize or accuse. Claire didn't come in until noon. When she did, her heels didn't click like they used to. They dragged. Just slightly. Enough that I noticed. She stormed past my desk without making eye contact, then called me into her office not 5 minutes later like I was still someone she could summon. I walked in. She didn't ask me to sit. You need to fix this, she hissed, shutting the door like she was afraid the walls had ears. Maybe they did. You're going to email him. You're going to apologize for the confusion. You're going to explain that this team, my team, is aligned and committed, and that we value character, integrity, and all the other buzzwords he seems to care about. I said nothing. She paced like a caged thing, hair frazzled, lipstick worn down to a ghost of its usual power shade. You're going to undo whatever spell you cast, because if this contract tanks, the board's going to be breathing down my neck, and I swear to God. I finally looked up. That was all it took. She stopped talking. There was nothing in my expression, nothing aggressive, just stillness. I wasn't the wet, frantic employee she'd sneered at 24 hours ago. I was the person her golden goose had looked at and said, "You're the only one I'm interested in." And we both knew it. I walked out without a word. The interviews started pouring in later that afternoon. Reporters calling reception. Anonymous emails offering a chance to speak your truth. LinkedIn messages from competitors with emojis and thinly veiled job offers. I didn't reply to any of them. Let them wonder. Let them write whatever version made them sleep better. The client, he reached out late that night. No subject line. Just an email that read, "Let's talk. Off the record. M. No fluff. No assistance. Just a direct line from the man who'd flipped the entire company's trajectory with a single sentence. I replied with one word. Tomorrow. We met in a quiet corner booth of a diner that looked like it hadn't changed since 1972. I wore jeans. He wore the same scuffed shoes. He didn't waste time. Didn't offer fake praise or inspirational quotes. Just a short nod and then, "Tell me what you really do here." And for the first time in years, I did. Not the title. Not the HR-approved talking points. Just the truth. I told him how I handled the data integrations no one understood. How Claire skimmed the surface while I mapped the guts. How the client dashboards everyone praised were built on code I stitched together at 2 a.m. How the culture rewarded presentation over people. How the best work was done in the dark by folks like me who never got called into these meetings, unless something needed fixing at the last second. He didn't interrupt. Didn't take notes. Just listened, sipping burnt coffee and watching me with those same blue eyes that missed nothing. When I finished, he slid a napkin across the table. Handwritten address. No explanation. "You're not going back," he said flatly. "You're moving forward. Start Monday. Bring no one." Then he stood up and walked out. No pitch. No offer sheet. Just truth and control. The kind I never thought I'd have. Not by shouting, not by climbing, but by holding steady when everything else was fake. For the first time in my life, I didn't need to ask permission to leave. I just needed to say yes. The building was glass and steel and quiet power, tucked behind a row of manicured hedges in a part of town where everything costs more just for existing. The kind of place that doesn't advertise itself. You either know the address or you don't belong there. I walked in wearing the same worn leather bag I'd carried for years. Claire once called it cute in a broke academic kind of way. I never replaced it. The lobby had no receptionist. No artwork. Just a fingerprint scanner and a glass elevator that took me straight to the top without asking questions. When the doors opened, he was already waiting. Black turtleneck. No tie. Scuffed shoes again, same damn pair. Like some running joke only he understood. He led me into a small conference room. No projection screen. No seating chart. Just a round table and 2 chairs evenly spaced. A thick folder sat in front of the chair nearest me. I didn't touch it. He didn't do the usual song and dance. No biography. No net worth flex. Just said, "Name's Mark. Started in HVAC. First patent was a screwless valve. Everything since then has been noise." I raised an eyebrow. He smiled faintly. "I watch people. Always have. Credentials bore me. Behavior doesn't lie." Then he sat, folded his hands, and looked at me with those glacier eyes. That moment in the lobby, that was it. That's what I needed. Everyone else wanted to sell me a dream. You just helped someone in the middle of a mess. That's the kind of person I want building the future. I glanced at the folder. Didn't open it. My stomach tightened. "I'm not asking you to be a face," he continued. "I'm asking you to be a mind. Co-architect. Not just in title. In design, in structure, in people. The blueprint starts with you." I stared at him. That same invisible tug-of-war began churning inside me. Loyalty, whatever scraps were left after years of being overlooked. Fear, of walking away from the only ladder I'd been climbing. Ambition, starved, brittle, finally being fed and terrified it might choke. "You could pick anyone," I said quietly. "Someone flashier. Someone who didn't show up soaked and late." "Exactly," he said. "But I don't want polish. I want foundation." Silence sat between us for a long breath. Then I finally reached for the folder. Opened it. Inside, a proposal, handwritten. Bullet points, sketches, a few crude diagrams. Not corporate. Not polished. Raw. Real. It felt like touching the opposite of everything I'd been suffocating under. I didn't smile. Didn't say thank you. Just nodded. "One condition," I said. flipping the folder shut. No press, no announcements, no LinkedIn posts or photo ops. I don't want to be a mascot. He stood and extended a hand. Deal. We shook on it. And that was that. I walked out with the folder tucked under my arm. Same bag, same pace, but everything felt different. Like I just stepped out of a shadow I hadn't realized I'd been standing in for years. I didn't call anyone, didn't email Claire, didn't update my status. I just walked, slowly, quietly, out of their world, and into mine. By Thursday, the silence snapped. Not a bang, not a press release, just a whisper. One tiny leak from someone on the legal team, and suddenly, the entire firm was bleeding out across every Slack thread, group text, and bathroom stall whisper. The billionaire, the one they'd all been trying to impress with their buzzwords and recycled strategy decks, had pulled out. Fully, publicly, quietly devastating. No official statement, just a brief notice to the board of directors that he was no longer pursuing alignment with firms that do not reflect the values necessary to sustain long-term ventures. That was it. But everyone knew, and everyone knew why. By Friday morning, the board had called an emergency meeting. Claire didn't show up for work. HR said she was working remotely. Translation: she was being cornered like a rat in a glass office. The worst part? She tried to take me down with her. Someone forwarded me the thread. A string of internal emails Claire had sent the night after the meeting, timestamped at 1:12 a.m., titled, "Strategy for Nate's Exit." In them, she proposed filing a disciplinary write-up for unprofessional tardiness, suggesting it was a pattern and not a one-time incident. She used words like insubordination, attitude, cultural misalignment, words you use when you're trying to build a case against someone you underestimated too many times. But she didn't know the thread got flagged, or that it had been quietly sent to legal, or that Mark, the billionaire with the janitor's shoes, had already made sure someone would see it. It was like watching a ship try to plug a hole in the hull after it had already sunk to the ocean floor. Monday morning, I walked in for the last time. No fanfare, no boxes. I didn't clear my desk. I just printed out one sheet of paper, my formal resignation, and signed, and laid it on Claire's desk, which was now occupied by a temporary HR rep pretending she wasn't Googling corporate scapegoat fallout. On top of the resignation, one yellow sticky note, black ink, block letters, "Thanks for the opportunity." I didn't wait around to see the reaction. Didn't care to. That place had taken enough of my time, my ideas, my energy. Let them chew on the silence. On my way out, Sasha passed me in the hall. She didn't say anything, just gave me this tight, fake smile, like she still didn't know whether to treat me like a ghost or a threat. Martin avoided eye contact completely, probably afraid I'd blow up his little innovation pipeline with a tweet. Let them squirm. Let them sit in meetings wondering if I was going to talk. I wasn't. Truth didn't need my help anymore. It already had teeth. Outside, the sun was out. Bright, sharp, the kind of fall morning that makes the whole city feel washed clean. I stepped onto the sidewalk and took a deep breath. The air didn't taste like coffee or stress or performance reviews. Tasted like closure. Real, quiet, and completely mine. ChatGPT skazal. The room was nothing like a boardroom. No gleaming conference table polished within an inch of its life. No overpriced ergonomic chairs or mounted screens flickering with KPI dashboards. Just a simple oak table big enough for 8, maybe 10 people. Sunlight poured through floor-to-ceiling windows, warm and unapologetic. Not staged, not curated, just real. The chairs were mismatched. Some wood, some leather. One looked like it had been rescued from a school library. There were laptops, notebooks, mugs, not branded, not uniform. A team, not a performance. And at the head of the table, right where it should be, sat a single manila folder. I walked toward it without hesitation. No one stood. No one clapped. No one announced my arrival like some LinkedIn post come to life. They just looked up, those few already seated, and nodded, as if to say, "You made it," as if they knew exactly who I was and didn't need me to prove it. I pulled out the chair, sat down, and opened the folder. Inside, a title page, "New Venture Blueprint." No logo, no tagline, just 3 words. And my name, right at the top. Not buried on page 47 as project contributor. Not listed as supporting strategist. Just me, clear, central. I didn't smile right away. I sat with it, let the moment soak in. For all the years of invisible labor, credit rerouted, contributions downplayed. This was the first time I saw my name on something that mattered without having to claw my way into the margins. And then I heard the door open behind me. I didn't have to turn around to know who it was. He walked in calm, composed, tailored charcoal gray jacket, button-down shirt, no tie, same watch, same quiet command of space. But everything about him now radiated clarity. The man I'd helped mop up after in the lobby, now stepping to the head of the table. Mark gave me a small nod. I returned it. No words. None needed. We understood each other. Two people who had both been underestimated for different reasons. One dismissed for looking like he belonged beneath a mop. The other for daring to lead without permission. He sat across from me, opened his own folder, and tapped his pen once against the table. It wasn't a beginning. It was a continuation of something neither of us had the language for yet. But we knew what it wasn't. It wasn't spectacle. It wasn't noise. It wasn't built to impress the boardroom across the street. It was real. I glanced out the window, sunlight burning across the skyline like the whole city had turned to gold for 5 quiet seconds. Final thought, as I closed the folder, they saw a clock puncher. He saw a person. And I saw a way out.